10 banned cars you've probably never seen. These cars were born of bold ideas, revolutionary decisions, and insane courage. But instead of glory, they were met with silence. Some were too dangerous, others were too weird, and some were just too far ahead of their time. They were banned, recalled, destroyed. America is thinking of erasing them from history, as if they never existed. But today, we'll reveal the secret. We'll lift the veil of oblivion and show you cars that are not usually talked about. Welcome to the channel, friends. Sit back, fasten your seatbelts, and get ready for a journey into the darker side of the automotive industry. You'll show us 10 of the most banned cars of all time. Number 10. 1982 Zimmer Golden Spirit. Too flashy for its own good? All right, buckle up, because this one isn't your typical muscle car or government recall story. Let's talk about the 1982 Zimmer Golden Spirit, a car you've probably never seen in person, and maybe that's by design. Now, if you've never heard of Zimmer, don't feel bad. This wasn't some big automaker. Zimmer was part of the neoclassic movement, a strange 1980s trend where companies took modern cars and turned them into retro-looking luxury machines. Think 1930s gangster car, but with power windows and an 8-track player. The Golden Spirit started life as a Ford Mustang, but after Zimmer's craftsmen got their hands on it, it barely resembled anything from Detroit. It had a long front end, oversized chrome bumpers, faux exhaust pipes on the sides, exposed horns, wire wheels, and a grille that looked like it came off a Duesenberg. It was big, brash, and ridiculously over the top. Now here's where things get weird. You'd think a car like this would be some kind of collector's dream, but instead, it was quietly pushed into the shadows. Why? Well, first, safety and emissions. Zimmer made all these modifications without going through the full federal crash and emissions testing that normal automakers had to pass, and that raised a ton of red flags. Some states flat out refused to register it as a new vehicle. Others treated it like a kit car or a home-built machine. That's a problem when your asking price was over $80,000 in the 1980s. Second, the car was just too weird for most buyers. It didn't appeal to Mustang fans, and it wasn't luxurious enough for the Rolls-Royce crowd, so it fell between the cracks. Some called it a cartoon car, others just didn't know what to make of it. And before long, Zimmer was losing money fast. By the late 80s, the neoclassic fad had faded. Zimmer went bankrupt. Most Golden Spirits were quietly garaged, auctioned, or forgotten. And because of how these cars were built, without mainstream automaker support, they never got full approval from regulators. They were essentially street-legal gray area cars, not banned by law, but blacklisted by reality. So why include it in our list? Because it represents something powerful, a car that dared to be different but got erased for being too different, a car that lived on the edge of design, regulation, and taste and paid the price. Number 9. 1977 Chrysler Cordoba 300X, the secret muscle car Chrysler never let loose. All right, picture this. It's the late 1970s. Muscle cars are dying. Emissions laws are strangling horsepower. And Chrysler? They're in survival mode. But somewhere deep inside Chrysler's engineering department, someone still had a pulse. Someone said, "Let's build something wild. Let's bring the muscle car back, even just for a moment." That's where the Chrysler Cordoba 300X comes in. Now, if you've heard of the regular Cordoba, you probably remember Ricardo Montalban purring about rich Corinthian leather. It was a personal luxury car, smooth, stylish, and built for comfort. But the 300X, that was something else entirely. This was Chrysler's secret concept muscle car. It took the soft Cordoba coupe and turned it into a fire-breathing, tire-shredding monster. At least, that was the idea. Chrysler fitted it with a high-performance 400 cubic inch V8, performance suspension, special badging, and a wild paint scheme. They slapped on fender flares, spoilers, and even hood scoops. This thing looked mean. The name 300X wasn't just for fun. It was meant to recall the legendary Chrysler 300 letter cars of the 50s and 60s, cars that once ruled the road in speed and prestige. This new one was supposed to be a modern-day reincarnation. It even had custom wheels and a modified exhaust note. Chrysler wanted this to be loud, proud, and fast. But it never happened. Only one prototype was ever built, just one. Chrysler unveiled it at a few auto shows, hoping to stir up excitement. But the timing couldn't have been worse. By 1977, the world had changed. Gas prices were up. Insurance rates for performance cars had skyrocketed. And the government? They weren't exactly friendly to loud V8 monsters anymore. Safety and emissions regulations were tightening. There just wasn't room in Chrysler's budget or in America's climate for a car like this. The 300X was quietly canceled before it even got a chance to hit production. The prototype disappeared into storage. No marketing, no press, no glory. So why is this car on our list of ultra-banned machines? Because the Cordoba 300X was silenced before it could roar. It wasn't banned by law. It was banned by the times, by economics, and by fear. It was too bold, too powerful, and too late. Today, the 300X is just a ghost, a reminder of what Chrysler could have done if the world had let them. Number 8. 1980 Dodge Mirada CMX, the luxury muscle car that never stood a chance. Let's rewind to 1980. The muscle car era is over. Gas is expensive, emissions rules are strict. Chrysler is barely holding on. And yet, from the chaos, they try one more time to bring a little thunder back to the streets. Enter the 1980 Dodge Mirada CMX. At first glance, the Mirada looked like just another boxy personal coupe from the era, all sharp lines and squared-off chrome. But if you dig a little deeper, the CMX version? That was Dodge's secret weapon. A luxury performance hybrid designed to revive Dodge's fading identity as the brand of muscle and boldness. The CMX trim came with some eye-catching features: padded Landau roof, special CMX badging, leather interior, and even a real brushed aluminum dashboard insert. But the real story was under the hood. Dodge offered the Mirada CMX with the 5.9-liter 360 cubic inch V8, the biggest engine Chrysler could legally put into a passenger car at the time. It wasn't a barnstormer by 1970 standards, but in 1980, it was something. There was even talk, briefly, of a limited-run 4-barrel high-output performance variant. But here's where it all fell apart. Despite its muscle roots, the Mirada CMX was plagued by poor planning and worse timing. Chrysler was deep in financial crisis. They didn't have the resources to really develop the CMX as a proper performance coupe. Quality issues were common. The automatic transmissions weren't built for aggressive driving. The suspension was too soft. And worst of all, Chrysler's own management wasn't committed. There were rumors of a NASCAR homologation version. Dodge even built a few Mirada NASCAR test cars, but they didn't perform. Aerodynamics were terrible. Racers begged Dodge to give them something better, but the brand just couldn't deliver. In the end, the Mirada CMX became a footnote, a car that wanted to be bold but was never truly allowed to be. Production limped along until 1983, and then the name vanished for good. Was it ever officially banned? No, but the CMX died a quieter kind of death, erased not by law, but by neglect. A car that could have been Dodge's comeback, if only the world had let it. Today, hardly anyone remembers it, but now you do. Number 7. 1974 Sterling Nova. Okay, let me ask you something. What if I told you that in the 1970s, there was a car that looked straight from a science fiction movie, but it was real? Built by hand, driven by a few brave souls, and then, like a UFO, it disappeared. That car was the Stirling Nova. Now, technically, it wasn't born in America. The original design came out of the UK in 1971 and was called the Nova Kit Car. But by 1974, it had crossed the ocean, been rebadged, and given a second life as the Stirling Nova here in the United States. What made it special? Just look at it. The body was a low-slung, fiberglass spaceship on wheels. It didn't have doors like a normal car. The entire roof and windshield lifted forward, like the canopy of a fighter jet. That's how you got in. That alone made it look like something from the future. But under that wild body was a very familiar and very modest Volkswagen Beetle chassis. That's right, the Stirling Nova was basically a bug wearing a supercar Halloween costume. Most Novas used the air-cooled VW Flat 4 engine, which wasn't exactly high performance. But this wasn't about speed. It was about style, individuality, and rebellion. You didn't buy a Stirling Nova to go fast. You bought one to turn every head in town. So why did it disappear? For one, it was a kit car, not a factory-build production vehicle. That meant buyers had to assemble it themselves or pay someone to do it. Quality varied wildly. Second, safety and legality. That crazy canopy, it looked amazing, but it had no rollover protection, terrible visibility, and if the electrics failed, you could literally get trapped inside. Not exactly DOT-friendly. And third, emissions and regulation. By the late 70s, government rules got stricter, and small kit car makers like Stirling couldn't keep up. The Nova never had crash testing, modern lighting, or EPA compliance. It was simply too weird, too small, and too unregulated for the modern road. By the early 80s, the Stirling Nova had faded away. But even today, it leaves a lasting impression. Because while it may have been flawed, the Stirling Nova was proof of something powerful. That design, imagination, and boldness can live anywhere, even in someone's garage. You've probably never seen one in person, but now you know it was real. Number 6. 1970 AMX AX2, the wild American supercar that never got to roar. Let's be honest, when most people think American muscle, they think Ford, Chevy, maybe Dodge. But in 1970, it was AMC. Yes, American Motors Corporation that dared to dream the wildest dream of all. This is the story of the AMX2, a car so radical, so ahead of its time, it never got a real shot at the road. Now, if you've never heard of it, don't feel bad. Most people haven't. And that's because the AMX2 wasn't a production car. It was a concept. But it was more than that. It was a statement. At the height of the muscle car wars, AMC wanted to shake off its image as the economy car company. It had already built the AMX, a short wheelbase, two-seat muscle coupe that punched above its weight. But the AMX2? That was meant to be the next level. When it debuted in 1970 at the Chicago Auto Show, jaws hit the floor. It looked like a fighter jet in low orbit, a swooping, low-slung body, wide haunches, a mid-engine layout, at least in concept, and a cockpit that looked more Le Mans than Detroit. This wasn't just a muscle car, this was an American exotic. The AMX2 was designed under the guidance of Dick Teague, AMC's legendary head of styling. The goal? To create a road-going supercar that could compete with the best of Europe, but wear the AMC badge. And here's the kicker. It almost happened. Unlike most concepts, the AMX2 was a real, drivable prototype. It ran, it moved, it wowed crowds. And internally, AMC was seriously considering a limited production run. They even designed a follow-up, the even wilder AMX3, with help from Italian builder Giotto Bizzarini. But then, the dream collapsed. The 1970s hit hard. Insurance costs for high-performance cars skyrocketed. Emissions regulations tightened. Gas prices spiked. And AMC, they were losing money fast. They had to choose between building radical halo cars or staying alive. The AMX2 and its exotic ambitions were quietly shelved. Just one prototype survived, and with it, a vision of what American performance could have become. Today, the AMX2 is barely a footnote, buried in dusty archives and old car show photos. But it mattered, because in a moment when Detroit was playing it safe, AMC swung for the fences. The AMX2 wasn't banned, it wasn't dangerous, it was just too bold for the times. And now, it's a ghost, a beautiful, forgotten what-if in the story of American muscle. Number 5. 1981 Ford Capri, the Euro Mustang that America forgot. When we think of Ford's sporty coupes from the 1980s, one name dominates the spotlight: the Mustang. But tucked in the shadows, there was another, one with sleeker lines, European blood, and a different kind of attitude. This is the story of the 1981 Ford Capri, a car that walked a line between muscle and import and quietly disappeared from American memory. Let's rewind a bit. The Capri was born in Europe, developed by Ford of Germany and the UK, not Dearborn. It was Ford's answer to the rise of affordable, sporty coupes like the Opel Manta and Datsun 240Z. Over there, it was a hit. And in 1970, Ford decided to bring it to the US under the Mercury brand, not Ford. But by 1979, the landscape changed. The Fox platform, the same one used under the Mustang, gave Ford a way to unify its small, sporty coupes. So for 1981, we got the Fox Body Mercury Capri, a car that looked like a Mustang from some angles but had its own personality. It was offered with a range of engines, from the modest 2.3-liter inline-4 to a 5.0 V8. Performance? Respectable. The 5.0 V8 models could move. But the Capri never tried to outshine the Mustang. It aimed for something different, a slightly more European flavor with flared fenders, unique taillights, and a more refined presentation. And that's the interesting part. The 1981 Capri wasn't loud or flashy. It was a subtle blend of American power and European influence. In a decade of extremes, that made it stand out, and also easy to overlook. Buyers didn't quite know what to make of it. It wasn't as raw as the Mustang. It wasn't as upscale as a Thunderbird. And by the mid-80s, sales were fading. In 1986, the Capri name vanished from North America entirely. But here's the thing. The Capri helped shape the Fox Body era. It's part of that DNA. And today, it's a rare sight. Most were driven into the ground, parted out, or simply forgotten. So if you spot a clean 1981 Capri, you're looking at a unique moment in Ford history, a car that tried to be something different during a time when everything was getting louder and more extreme. It wasn't a mistake, it wasn't a legend, it was a quiet rebel, and for that, it deserves to be remembered. Number 4. 1966 Oldsmobile Toronado XSR, the forgotten dream coupe GM never released. In 1966, Oldsmobile shocked the world with something truly radical, the Toronado, America's first front-wheel drive car since the Cord 810 of the 1930s. It was long, wide, and unapologetically bold, with a design that looked like it came from a science fiction film. But even more shocking, there was a secret version you were never supposed to see. This is the story of the Oldsmobile Toronado XSR, a concept so wild that even GM pulled the plug before it ever reached production. Let's start with the basics. The standard Toronado was already pushing boundaries. Under the hood was a massive 425 cubic inch Super Rocket V8. It made 385 horsepower and drove the front wheels, something unheard of in full-size American cars. It had hidden headlights, muscular fenders, and a fastback roofline that turned heads everywhere it went. But Oldsmobile wasn't done. Behind the scenes, a limited production version was being developed, the Toronado XSR, short for Experimental Sports Roadster. This wasn't just a trim package, it was an engineering testbed, a styling experiment, and a statement. The standout feature? A power-operated sliding Targa roof long before the term became trendy. The plan was to create a car with a retractable roof section over both front seats, a sort of halfway point between a coupe and a convertible. Think of it like an early American attempt at a luxury T-top. The roof was being designed with help from ASC, American Sunroof Company, and prototypes were built. But there was a big problem. The complex mechanism was unreliable. It leaked, jammed, and just didn't work consistently. Not something you could put into mass production with confidence in 1966. Number 3. 1962 Ford Ecoline, the van that looked like a joke but changed everything. When Ford introduced the Ecoline in 1961, most Americans had never seen anything quite like it. It was tall, boxy, flat-faced, and awkward. And yet, the 1962 Ford Ecoline helped spark a revolution, one that would influence vans, trucks, and even pickups for decades. At first glance, the Ecoline looked like something straight out of a comic strip. Its short nose and cab-over design made it seem like a toy rather than a serious work vehicle. But this was intentional. Ford engineers were trying something bold to make the most compact, lightweight, and affordable van possible for small businesses, tradesmen, and families. Underneath, the Ecoline was based on the compact Ford Falcon platform. Yes, the same as the little sedan. It featured unibody construction, a flat floor, and, most notably, a cab-forward design where the driver sat nearly on top of the front axle with the engine placed between the seats. That engine? It was a modest inline-six, just 144 cubic inches at first, later upgraded to 170 CI. It wasn't a powerhouse, but it got the job done, especially for city deliveries, plumbing jobs, or hauling light equipment. There were three major versions: the cargo van, the passenger van, often called the club wagon, and the pickup truck variant, perhaps the strangest of all. The Ecoline pickup had the same cab-forward setup, but the rear cargo bed was small, shallow, and sat unusually high. Still, it turned heads and had its niche audience. But the Ecoline wasn't without flaws. That forward driving position, it made crash protection nearly non-existent. In a front-end collision, the driver and passenger were incredibly vulnerable. There was no crumple zone, just sheet metal and knees up against the dashboard. Heat and noise from the engine, tucked right next to your hip, were another constant complaint. Insulation helped, but you were always riding alongside a buzzing metal box. Still, despite its quirks, the Ecoline sold well. Ford had tapped into something real, a new kind of utility vehicle for a growing middle class and small business boom. Competing with the VW Microbus, it offered more American practicality with a price to match. And culturally, it became iconic. By the mid-1960s, the Ecoline was embraced by hippie culture, converted into campers, surf vans, and road trip rigs. You'd see them painted with flowers, shag carpeting inside, and maybe even a lava lamp bouncing around in the back. So while the 1962 Ford Ecoline might have looked goofy, like a refrigerator on wheels, it was a serious turning point in how Americans thought about vans and light trucks. It may not have had the glamour of a Mustang or the power of a muscle car, but it delivered something just as important: utility, affordability, and character. Today, early Ecolines are cult classics, strange, rare, and totally unforgettable. Number 2. 1962 Dodge Turbo Dart, Chrysler's forgotten leap into the future. Let's go back to 1962, the tail end of the space-age optimism. Jet power was all the rage. Airplanes were sleek, rockets were in the headlines, and the auto industry? It wanted in. Chrysler, ever the innovator, decided to bring jet-age power to the streets. The result was one of the wildest experimental cars ever built, the 1962 Dodge Turbo Dart. At first glance, the car didn't look especially unusual. It was based on the standard 1962 Dodge Dart, a fairly conventional mid-size sedan. But under the hood, it was anything but ordinary. Instead of a traditional V8 or inline-six, the Turbo Dart was powered by a Chrysler A831 gas turbine engine. That's right, a jet engine in a street car. This turbine engine didn't use pistons or spark plugs. It worked like a mini jet engine. Air was compressed, mixed with fuel, and ignited to spin a turbine, which in turn drove the wheels. It ran on a wide variety of fuels, not just gasoline, but kerosene, diesel, even peanut oil in a pinch. The promise? A simpler, smoother, more durable engine with far fewer moving parts than a regular combustion engine. Chrysler engineers believed this was the future of driving: clean, efficient, futuristic. But there were problems. The engine sounded like a hairdryer on steroids. It whined loudly at idle and roared under acceleration. Some testers loved the sound. Most people found it weird and annoying. Throttle response was slow. Press the pedal, and the car took a beat or two before the turbine spooled up. In city driving, this delay made it awkward and sometimes unsafe. And there was the heat. Turbine engines ran hot, very hot. The exhaust was powerful enough to melt plastic trash cans or scorch the paint off a wall if you parked too close. Needless to say, this wasn't ideal for neighborhood driving. Chrysler built just 2 Dodge Turbo Dart prototypes as part of a larger fleet of 50 gas turbine cars, most of which were the sleeker Chrysler Turbine Car Coupe released in 1963. These cars were loaned out to the public in a massive real-world test program, and the Turbo Dart was an early test bed. In the end, the turbine dream faded. High production costs, poor fuel economy, and emissions issues meant the concept was shelved. The public wasn't ready, and the technology, while fascinating, just wasn't practical for mass use. Not yet. Number 1. 1966 Buick Riviera Silver Arrow 1, a dream car that almost was. In the golden era of American automobiles, concept cars weren't just design studies, they were visions of the future. And few were as breathtaking or mysterious as the 1966 Buick Riviera Silver Arrow 1. Created as a special one-off show car by the legendary Bill Mitchell, then head of General Motors Styling, the Silver Arrow 1 wasn't just another concept thrown together for a car show. This was Mitchell's personal vision, his answer to what the American luxury coupe should become. Built from a production 1966 Buick Riviera, the Silver Arrow 1 took what was already one of the most elegant cars on the market and turned it into something bordering on sci-fi. The most striking feature? The radically lowered roofline, chopped by nearly 3 inches. It gave the car a sleek, almost predatory stance, far lower and more dramatic than the stock model. That profile was pure American grand touring, but with hints of Italian coach-building elegance. Flush-mounted headlight covers, a custom silver paint job, and smooth bodywork without trim completed the look. Even the windshield was altered to match the lower roof. This was not just a quick styling tweak, this was re-engineering for the sake of beauty. Inside, the Silver Arrow 1 featured a bespoke interior, high-end materials, aircraft-inspired gauges, and a cockpit feel that was more Corvette Stingray than luxury Buick. But what really made this car special wasn't just the looks. It was the idea behind it. Mitchell believed American luxury didn't have to be soft or bloated. It could be aggressive, low-slung, and emotionally stirring. The Silver Arrow 1 was meant to prove that Buick, a brand often associated with older drivers at the time, could build a car to rival anything coming out of Europe. Under the hood was a massive 425 cubic inch nailhead V8, delivering serious performance for its day. But it was never about drag racing. It was about effortless power, high-speed cruising, and a sense of commanding presence. Sadly, this dream car never made it to production. The Silver Arrow 1 was too radical for Buick's more conservative buyers. It remained a one-of-one concept, occasionally displayed at shows, but mostly kept under wraps, like a secret masterpiece. Today, the car still exists, restored and preserved in private hands. It's rarely seen, but when it is, it leaves a lasting impression. A time capsule from an era when GM's designers ruled the world and weren't afraid to build the wildest, most beautiful machines they could imagine. The 1966 Buick Riviera Silver Era 1 is more than just a concept car. It's a reminder of what happens when bold design is given free rein, and when one man's vision can reshape what we think an American car should be.